TW that's going to be hanging out with us as we kick the show off. Gentlemen, it is a pleasure to have all of you here joining us. I can't wait to get into things. If you guys have watched EU, you know we are in for quite the games, and no one is safe. Now, of course, we're going to be talking about things, but first, let's talk about the show itself and how things will be running in case you have been watching the first time. Hey, hope you've had a great day. Thanks for taking time to come in and hang out with us. We appreciate that. Well, let's go ahead and kick things off together. All right, we're going to talk about the format of the show itself. Yesterday, we had the reboot round where the top 20 players in every region qualified through after 20 games into grand finals. A second opportunity definitely has been paying off for some of these players. Today and tomorrow, we'll be taking a look at grand finals. That'll be 12 games, 6 on both days. And then tomorrow night, we will crown FNCS Invitational champions. Now, games will be running for every region. There is 7 in total across the day. And we ourselves will be broadcasting EU and NA East. There's always a break between, so come back tomorrow if you want to check out some of that Fortnite action. Of course, we got to talk about the format itself. How are players earning these points? Well, don't forget, that Victory Royale is worth 33 points. Great starting place with top 10 being a great secondary place to try and land if possible. You can still earn a single point for hitting as far out as 75th, and every elimination is, of course, 4 points. Now, what are these guys winning? What are they walking away with at the end of the day? Well, not only will one player be crowned the FNCS Invitational champion, but there's actually also quite a bit of prize money on the line for these players competing. We'll take a look at the region breakdown. Here you go. Now, don't forget, this is every single region will have an amount of money available to the players participating. And now, specifically, though, what does the NA East breakdown look like? Because EU had its own breakdown, as with all these other regions. We can actually get a look here at what it looks like for NA East. I mean, I'm not going to make the joke, guys, because I do it a lot, and I hate myself for it. But, hey, quite a bit of money. All right, with that being said, we got to talk about the players. Stop, Volley, you're making me laugh. We got to talk about the players that are participating here, because don't forget, 80 players qualified through week number 2. And yesterday, during the reboot round, 20 players got a second shot and were rebooted. Here we go, taking a look. Now, Bob, this is a list from top left all the way to bottom right. The initial 80 will be how they qualified through week 2, and then the final page will actually be the people from yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of big names in this field in the grand finals. You see people like Scope, you see people like Unknown, somebody who has been a champion in prior FNCS. The same with Zate coming off of the Duos champion. So, I mean, this is going to be a tough field no matter how you slice it.
A lot of players here, Sundown. What do you think, man? I mean, obviously, we got a lot of big names. Mega, right? We talked about this as one of the players that is incredibly consistent, right? Up there with Zayd. I think this is something Ozzy talked about. But there's a lot of really powerful players here.
I think one of the key things we're going to talk about today and over the course of tomorrow is kind of the old guard versus the new, and whether or not we're...
Sundown, did you drop? Are you still talking?
Oh. I think we dropped Sundown, so I can take over because me and Sundown had an at-length discussion about this earlier. It's going to be that old guard versus the new. We got those players like Zate, like Mega. They've qualified for every single major grand final FNCS tournament, but we have some new faces in here. I would say SF Roller, not a lot of people saw that coming through. We have Bully up there as well, coming so well. It's just, Furious. I don't know who's going to come out on top today. We have Booger, maybe has to retain a bit of that crown of being the World Cup Solos champion. Maybe they're going to be able to back it up today. I'm not entirely sure.
And on that last page was the players who made it through reboot too. And at the top of yesterday was Clicks. I mean, he dominated. And this is somebody we know and we are familiar with in solo competition. But when it comes down to grand finals is the question that we pose to Clicks. Is he going to be able to perform? He's in good form, but following through is going to be the difficult part for him.
Yeah, and we got a pretty good snapshot of what that looks like from EU, right? A lot of these players we expected to do well, that we anticipated was like, oh yeah, no problem. They didn't make it up there, while as other people, New Guard and also people that kind of were flying under the radar, showed up in really big ways.
And just to touch on what Cam was saying, what Sundown was saying before this was, yeah, it is fight a battle basically to hold on to the thrones in NA East for people like Zate, Booga, Bizzle, Stretch, those guys up against new guys, new faces like Roller, who really came out of nowhere after the FNCS Duos competition and taking first in week 2. And also people like Furious and like Jack. Yes, there's names that we might be familiar with if we really watch the pro scene and the practice scene, but when it comes to top of the line grand finals performance, I think it definitely is trying to hold on, because if we've seen anything in the last weeks, is these new guard are coming up.
It's going to be kind of that tale as well. Is it going to be those consistent old guard who maybe have that more placement format, maybe not going to be as scared coming into this, but you got people like Sway, who we saw put on some serious eliminations yesterday in the reboot round. Are they going to be able to do it against those same big names, or are they going to fall short? Because 12 games, it's going to reward consistency. If you get higher limb consistency, you're still going to do well, but playing that endgame, more safer playstyle that we know from people like Zayt and Mega, it's going to be interesting to see how they turn out. But you touched on that. In EU, it didn't really seem to spell out that way.
Yeah, and we actually saw this exact example from Wolfies. Wolfies had a stellar performance to start the day, and then kind of fizzled out almost, Bala, right? We kind of saw him slow down because he got so focused in on eliminations.
He got a little too aggressive in that third and fourth games and ended up losing a little bit of his lead, but he's still up there. So when you think about NA East and who's kind of the king of consistency over day 1 and day 2 in the last 2 weeks, in my mind, it kind of has been Stretch, and it has been Furious too. Not necessarily some of the people who've won like Commandment and Roller, who came out on top in both the respective weeks, but Stretch and Furious, because these guys performed in both days on both weeks. So that's the kind of player that I'm looking for to be consistent, like Ozzy's saying.
Well, we also haven't really seen kind of the set matches solo format for a while too. So like these stack solos, so it is really anyone's game coming into. We haven't seen how people perform. We assume people like Clicks and Sway maybe going to have a harder time going a bit more aggressive, but eliminations being worth 4, there is actually quite a few points on the board for that. And sometimes we saw it during World Cup, right? We saw it, people can go super aggressive and catch them off guard. It can work. That aggression in a stacked format, a lot of people just sitting there playing their game, playing safe. All of a sudden you have someone like King coming straight through your box and it throws you off. So you never really know.
And you alluded to it too. Bugha is in this field. Bugha, the world champion, in his first return to a real grand finals solos performance. So you talk about World Cup. The way that he won was explosive performance with eliminations on top of what he did. And that's what we're kind of seeing in EU. So is he going to have that momentum going into it? And does a 2-day format actually hinder him or hurt him? Because a lot of people were asking, if we held World Cup on a different day, would it actually have been Bugha at the top? Would it have been him at the top of the day holding that trophy?
Is also the set match format across 2 days, right? We talk about a lot of these guys, they're going into the same games each time versus the same players. So you have a lot of time to adjust your playstyle and change it. So we've seen towards the end, World Cup being a great example. Last game, Bugha didn't go to his usual drop spot of Lucky Landing because all of a sudden a few people were going there. Like, things are going to get shaken up over a 12-game format, and people can really, really change up their playstyle. So not entirely sure how that one's going to play out for it.
That's right, and this is kind of like the meta within the meta, right? We talk about there being an overarching meta developing per season, but in these tournaments themselves, there is actually a meta, right? Because you kind of talk about it when you're facing off and you know, I'm going to agency, and I know these other 2 players are qualified through. They're going to contest me. What am I supposed to do now, right? Like, what are these fallback plans we have to kind of talk about? Like, this is a lot. There's so many moving parts to this story.
Absolutely, and you talk about drop spots, and we start getting a little granular because we're coming in close to this grand final starting. Bizzle is somebody who has had those uncontested spots time after time, and he is coming off of actually playing recently a solos final back in February, DreamHack Anaheim, and coming in second. He's still dropping at that same spot, and I'm pretty sure he still has barely anybody contesting him in the same manner, so we might see Bizzle coming up again.
Well, a lot of opportunities here for a lot of these players in NA East. Well, we're ready to kick off the FNCS Invitational for NA East. Let's get ready to send it into game with Aussie Antics and Sundown, who's now back. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you so
Sundown,
much, Zeke.
You can hear us.
Sounds like everything's back and working now. Apologies for that. Pulled a little bit of a... when working from home, things are a little bit more difficult. Have no idea what actually went wrong, but everything going now as we drop on into NA East Finals Game 1 of 12. And honestly, here's the map, seeing where they shake out. And what do you think, Ozzy?
I'm just happy it wasn't me is all I was going to say. I didn't drop out so far. I'm still hanging strong. It happens to the best of us. But yes, we're tuning back into one of those POIs that is going to shape up the tournament massively as Scoped goes down. Scoped going down 96th in game 1. He's lost the fight for Grotto. Right now, Icy had taken him out. And we see 2 more players on the minimap as well, kind of within range. But this looks like it's going to be his drop now. Looks like he's got Grotto game 1 to himself.
For now, as we can see in the bottom right-hand corner, it does have that kind of yellow triangle lurking by, so just typical to kind of loot around the outside and then rotate on through. We've seen that a number of times. As we switch on over to the World Cup solo champion himself, Bugha. Plenty of shields.
Ooh.
Does have the blue pump as well. And a totally uncontested drop here in the southeastern corner on the mountains, and pulls zone as well.
This is a very good job to get uncontested for a lot of reasons. It's got a good amount of loot, but this natural high ground is very good for getting those very necessary storm surge tags that will probably become a factor today. So having that high ground, having a lot of sight lines on a lot of people around you, and getting zone like this, he's also got that grappler too. He's got a fair few fishing hole opportunities around here. I mean, I wouldn't advise maybe pushing south towards Camp Cod. A lot of people down there probably not going to be too happy about it, but around the Misty area. So I think he's gotten a pretty good start to game one.
And as we see this, we're just kind of like swapping around, seeing where some of the key players are. Mega against somebody else we've talked about in the past, landing over here at those off-colored cabins or the tri-colored cabins, depending on what you want to call them. I know there's a more colloquial name in the community for it. I can't recall it right now, but Mega is one of those players. We talked about him and Zate being the two representatives in NA East who have qualified for quite literally everything they have played in. I mean, two of just phenomenal players. Mega, just one of the absolute young lords to kind of come up and really put FaZe Fortnite on the map and be a part of that team, and just already stacked here in terms of loot.
Yeah, but we talked about it a little bit earlier as well, though. So normally making those finals, but haven't had as much success in them. Obviously, making them is a massive achievement either way. No one is going to try and say that Zate and Mega aren't phenomenal players, but in solos as well, FNCS, someone like Zate, who has been not more known for a team player, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's been so long since we've seen these guys play out in solos. Who knows if they have worked on it a whole bunch, the mistakes they maybe made in the past, but it's an entirely different meta. We're on an entirely different map since the last time we played solos. If I want to talk about predictions coming into this, I actually think predictions is going to be probably the hardest to guess it's ever been. It's solos at the end of the day. There's 100 players. It's a very unpredictable meta at the moment. The aggression is being heavily rewarded, where people can make some interesting plays that cost other people. So I don't know. Do you think our predictions coming into today's Sundown are going to have as much merit, or do you think it's going to be that hard to predict?
So I think the bigger thing that's going to be different, particularly for NA East, is the change for 12 games. A lot of players are used to kind of pacing themselves out for what it looks like over the course of 6 games, kind of putting in that amount of effort. And I would say for most of these players, they play super hyper serious in about like maybe 3 or 4 of their 6 matches, and then 2 they end up either throwing away or feeling like they're desperate or out of it, or either they're trying to hold somebody else back. As we now swap on over to SF Roller, who won the week 3, coming out kind of shocking a lot of players, playing super aggressively. People wondering if it'll transfer over. I think that a lot of players are going to have to rethink that mentality over the course of 12 games, because it really comes down to, yes, one big game can change anything, but if you're consistently able to put yourself in a good spot, as we saw with Janice, and take advantage of players, as Roller is able to do right there, 31 tags pushing straight forward into the box and trying to clean up on the fight.
Yeah, really good damage there. Opens up the fight with some heavy shots. Takes him down to Whites. Oh, takes him out of the game. Shaz is out of here. SF Roller, the winner of week 2, has put himself on the board nice and early, and he picks up Meowscles' rifle. So fair bit of damage, as you saw there, lying in wait with that AR. He's now got one of the best ARs in the game to do it with. 88 critical damage from that. So really nice fight from him. Just again, taking this advantage. We talked about a lot during our cast yesterday. Those more Battle Royale-esque moments coming into it of waiting in ambush rather than just relying on your pure building mechanics.
And again, proving if you can get that first shot on somebody and take the aggressive, even in this top 100 group, Roller has no problem pushing forward, particularly in an early game fight. Can't stand still like that, going down right away. Zuki Class picking that one up, looking to make it a 2-for-1. See him sighting off the player, opts to just turn around and secure this hideout. That's one of the benefit of kind of landing over on the rig or on one of these henchman spots and getting that guaranteed heavy sniper.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much potential for early game picks, for mid game pushes on boxes. Like, it just enables so many different players to make plays. In Class right there, 4 points right away and pushing him that much closer to the top 75.
And that's when we talk about these 12 games and the set lobbies, the fact that maybe next time won't make that mistake. Now, understanding those rotations of people around you. So as these games develop, a lot of these players from NA East, they do practice a lot. They have their scrims. They play their games a lot together to make sure they know each other's rotations. But now they're knowing it a little bit better. Maybe going to be careful of Class over there. But yeah, a bit of a misplay knowing there's a guaranteed heavy sniper spawn just over there and then standing still with no walls. It's a mistake he's not going to be too happy about. Has 11 games to make up for it. But game one, you really want to get those jitters out. You really want to at least get towards endgame and just kind of feel it out, experience it a little bit, and then maybe calm down. Because there's some players who we talk about old guard versus new who haven't really played in that many stacked formats like this. When you've got people coming in here like Booger, like Zate, who have been on the stage playing for millions of dollars, and you have to think their composure will come into this, especially in these early games.
I think it's probably a little bit of mix of both, because we've also seen kind of players come onto the scene. I don't want to say not know better, but just play either with the composure that, hey, I've been here before, or hey, every match is the same, I'm just going to play that style out. But true. I think as you kind of increase the number of matches, like 12 is a lot of games of competitive Fortnite, particularly if you're playing kind of that placement style. Like if you were watching EU earlier, we talked about Giannis, who was able to place in first, and his ability, I think his only placement outside of top 10 or top 15 was at 54th in like game number 4. Jeez. Otherwise, he was up there every single time. But that's 20 to 25 minutes consistently of playing safe Fortnite, of avoiding some of the best players in the game, of not losing those engagements, and then getting into those moving circle rotations. It's incredibly difficult. And it's also avoiding sharks like Unknown Army, who is just running at people already on one elimination and doing a very traditional Unknown Army style thing where he expands a box out a number of ways and kind of baits the player into engaging in this box fight. This player's now locked in this Aussie.
Yeah, he's backed up against the wall. So Unknown's Army's elimination was actually on Grazka. I saw that earlier because I was looking at where everyone was going based on their games previously. And Slurpee being a drop that has 4 very big names added. Unknown trying to limit that number now. Doesn't go for the shield though. He errors at the top. So he got cracked, has no shield. This player thinking he's going to be on the back pot. Probably thinks he's popping his meds, but no, he's not. He's pushing out of the box on only 100 health. And it worked. He took down Frosty. We talked about it with those players like Clicks and Sway at the start. A lot of these players come into this with a preconceived notion of how other people are going to play it as well, but Unknown Army always wants to throw that out the window. He is an aggressive player through and through, and it often works for him.
And you see him swinging that Axe of Champions there, repping the fact that he was a past FNCS champion, taking that one over in the squad side. You see fired over here against Sharpshooter, qualified through on the mobile and console track, but pushing himself forward. Somebody who's done incredibly well on those console cash cups, just running through players on the iPad, just showing off a lot of incredible skill on that side and great game knowledge, but might get dropped here.
Ooh, he's popping a med kit, I believe. So if he can hit that one, maybe push in aggressively before he gets it off. I think he has cancel. I'm not sure. Decent shotgun there. He's got a purple pump in hand. Can he put it to work? And he can. Takes down Sharpshooter. Unfortunately, he's been playing well, like you said, on the iPad, but now in the finals, falls a little bit short. Not a bad fight, though. Had good edits, kind of got him down in towards his box. Could have had the potential to make that a good fight, but the 160 pump ends it. And Unknown going back into Slurpee now. Only has Jelty to deal with, but Colazo off in the distance. So far, it looks like out of the 4 people who are dropping Slurpee this game, Unknown's brought it down to 2.
Yeah, and honestly, if I'm game planning for this tournament and I know where Unknown is dropping, I'm going as far across the map from him as possible. Don't put yourself in his rotation path on the early game. Don't put yourself in his rotation path on the mid game. Because even if you don't think it's a good push and you might have the advantage, he's probably going to push you anyway. And if he thinks he's going to win the fight, then I'm not sure how many players can confidently say they'll be able to turn them around. But Jelty is a player who doesn't particularly care. The Spanish-speaking player who plays for Timbers, able to push him out. But somebody else who's around the backside, I think that was Tilt. No, this is Zate now, who might be on the other side of Unknown's pressure.
This is a new guard versus old guard here. Unknown obviously making it to World Cup as well, going toe-to-toe with Zate, but I would say that's more of that story of that aggression versus that passive playstyle. Zate probably just looking to skirt the edges of Slurpee, maybe get some more materials, maybe fish for a little bit longer in these pools, but no, Unknown has a different plan in mind, and Zate goes down game 1. That's massive. We have Scoped already gone, we have Zate already gone as well.
Yeah, and now you will see on the right-hand side the Storm Surge threshold warning going off. What that means when this circle closes, since there's 85 players remaining, it will see 15 players be pressured by Storm Surge. What Storm Surge does is it punishes players who have been the most passive in the lobby, the ones who haven't interacted and done damage to other players, and forces them to kind of get tags and get out and cause action. So that will start happening in the next minute if 15 players don't get pushed. So you'll see a decent amount of action driven by that. When the Storm Surge does come down from the sky, it hurts. It's 25 damage coming through every 10 seconds. You can try to outlast it, but it's very difficult. But right now, RBK Big Brain going down to Knight, but Unknown swooping in like a hawk, already on 3 eliminations, going for 4. He's not going to have to worry about Storm Surge, considering he's accounted for nearly a quarter of the players dropped in the lobby so far.
Yeah, he's not have to worry about Storm Surge at all, and that's why this strategy can work now. Unknown's gotten those early eliminations. I've talked about it to you multiple times with your strategy when you're playing. The easiest time to find those eliminations is the early game, when there's less eyes on you, less chance of being third-partied, and then you kind of box up, play passive in the mid-game, and then you push through to end game. Unknown already has 4 eliminations on the board. He's at 16 points, and placement hasn't even started kicking in yet. Obviously going to have no concern with Storm Surge whatsoever here, so he can choose to turn around and play passive now and go for those placements. Or, I mean, it's working so far, he might just keep running through people.
Honestly, I really hope this weekend we see an maturity and an advancement in Unknown's game, where he recognizes when he's having these good games, and he realizes that now, hey, first round of placement points just came through. I am loaded on loot. I am loaded on materials. There's going to be a ton of people here on the edge of the zone. Please leave. Ooh. Instead, catches a cheeky elim onto Fired, and I mean, as Hamlins would say, give me them toes.
Give me them toes. He's taken down 5 of the 30 people who have almost gone down. Almost 30 that have gone down here. This is an incredible run for Unknown so far. And yeah, we saw it yesterday. We talked about with clicks, when you get into those aggressive kind of games and you're kind of feeling it, and you know that it's popping today, and you push through with it, and it's working so far. We have Knight off in the distance, and I think for a 12-game format too, a lot of these players may be going to change their rotations to avoid Slurpee Swamps. So far, it's looking like just don't go anywhere near it. Doesn't matter what you need. It's not worth stepping anywhere near Unknown right now.
And typically we've talked about, too, how at the start of the region, a lot of players will play a little more passive, a little more relaxed. You want to kind of get into your rotation, see who else is going to be on your path, see what loot you can get in the mid-game, see what's going on. But again, since everyone's kind of been pulled towards the southeast corner, Unknown taking out a solid percentage of the lobby and forcing us down to 68 players remaining, as we see Perplexity take out all L2, no IQ, as he gets caught on the edge of the storm rotating. So name proving to be true there, but Perplexity cleaning it up there, and now going to be rotating through the swamp. So needs to be careful of all the other sharks we've seen lurking, as Rogue Shark himself goes down and Bully picks up an elim onto Nut.
Rogue Shark and Knight, 2 players I've been looking at keenly. They've been playing so consistently in duos, a little bit in solos as well, so seeing if that can translate over today. But obviously Rogue Shark going down game 1. That elimination onto all L2 no IQ was Showbeans as well. That's who Perplexity took down. Bit of the name change. We're always going to be playing with that, as Cast is having to keep up with everyone. Also, RBK Big Brain is also Arab, which is kind of amassed a pretty core following in the scene at the moment due to his smart gameplay, but unfortunately finding himself out in that mid-game around Slurpee was his demise. But Perplexity, look at the loadout. He's got everything he needs to close this one out. Missing a little bit of shield. If he takes some tags on this rotate, unfortunately, he's only going to be able to rely on those floppers to kind of heal himself back up. There's a lot of people on this edge as well, so he's going to have to try and pick this line very, very carefully.
And you really don't want to rely on floppers this early in the match. If you're relying on floppers at this point and having to kind of go back to those, it's going to be super difficult in the late game to make any form of plays unless you're able to get a refresher. You can see him kind of hanging out towards the end. He got Av up on top there. God Pump, which is Saf, is taking it right back to Unknown. He says, how dare you eliminate my duo partner? Give me the Clay special. Straightforward with the harpoon gun. In his face with the attack. God Pump. No, it's a God Rare tactical shotgun as Saf takes down 2 back-to-back Unknown Army. That is the danger you play with. We talked about wanting to see a little bit more maturity, a little more kind of poise when you're set in that stacked loot, and instead the veteran Saf makes it pay. But you have another Timbers player kind of lurking, trying to catch him as he rotates out.
And that's not a play you typically see from Saf. A phenomenal play, the double elimination, but taking that aggressive fight on edge zone. So we've talked about, again, maybe these older Vanguard who are used to playing that safe placement format, maybe they're going to go a little bit more aggressive. 4 points for an elimination is heavily rewarded, but at the same time, beautiful push from Saf. Gets 2 easy eliminations. He has to top up all his mass, all his loadout. He has his choice, and yeah, a little bit of payback. Saf and Zate, that duo that's been together since pretty much the beginning of competitive Fortnite, getting a little bit of payback for Zate on Unknown Army there, and maybe Unknown's going to change his playstyle. Maybe we will see that, you know, 1 or 2 eliminations early on around Slurpee, but we'll relax a little bit as he pushes into these more stacked endgames.
It's just weird hanging around the edge of zone after you've already got your picks out, as we see Crims hanging out right in a solo box and Tilt taking advantage of that when he desperately needed that refresher, but another player right on the other side trying to play Loot Goblin as well.
That was a very big refresh. Upgrades from the rare tack that we saw Saf put to such good use to the epic pump. I saw some minis there. I saw big pots and floppers. So he is very well topped up now. We see Commandment on our screen now. One of those players that is so well known as being one of those smarter players for team game modes. But can he make his way out in the solos? So some of the players here who've made a name for themselves have made their name for themselves since World Cup. They never even really got their solo World Cup opportunity. So Commandment gets a really nice elimination on Polarized. Only had to hit a couple of shots. Was caught out in the water. This zone is going to be very tough. I see about 5 or 6 people on that little misty island, the henchman spawn. It is going to be a very tough rotate for them. I think they're all looking at each other, waiting to see who has the launch pad. And for their sake, I really hope at least one of them has it.
You really hope you do, because you can see right now just everyone piling in around the outside. Storm Surge is going off. The next threshold will be top 50, so everyone going to be desperately looking for tags. The Heavy Sniper, the master of tag weapons, particularly if you're able to land a headshot. You have Calc posted up there in the bottom tabs, also on the low ground. Commandant picking up Perplexity, I think, with what was either a couple of quick rifle shots, but more likely that Heavy Sniper with the headshot, putting him way above the threshold. And yep, you can see him peeking over towards where he was able to catch that, firing off another shot as Avery picking up another Timbers player there. Have no idea who Timbers P is, so I apologize for that. Seen you in a number of the games, though, playing well. You have Hunt posted up just there. Spicy, the return from NA West coming over from the top. Oh, Timbers P is P God, the World Cup qualified player, so back over playing for Timbers as well. Vanquish Legendian on the other side with Jacques. Durant running through him, though.
Jeez, takes down Jark, someone who has also, again, been playing very consistently recently in solos and duos with Acorn. So there's a lot of duos in here today who are going to be looking to see if we have those interactions. Our duo teammate on teammate, it can be quite interesting when it happens. Like, you want to be happy for your elimination. Sometimes it's funny, but you never really want to take a good friend and teammate out of such a stacked game. But it's all competitive here. They're going to start trying to make their way up here. We're seeing some names that we haven't been following too much. There's Furious, who performed insanely well during the qualifiers. He's now going to try and see if he makes his rotate, sees the launch pad. I think he's going straight for it. Neon here needs to be careful. He's got that flopper, but he's sitting in Storm for quite a while trying to get this launch pad, trying to break it out and find his way through. He does. Takes a lot of damage for it, though. There goes the flopper. You talked about not having them in the end game now. Only 60 health, 47 shield. It's not the position you want to be in as he's flying into a lot of enemies, but finds a nice little base. No, goes straight in. The player sitting here, tabs. No, teammate of Colazo finding great purchase in duos. Unfortunately, solos here today just kind of left that edit open and didn't see it coming. I think that's more of that epic whale special, right? He's kind of coined that play, flying straight into a box and just surprising people for that reset.
I mean, that's what it's about, just trying to take advantage of that, get in the box and kind of take that 50-50 fight. Use your greater health pool, or in some cases, just when you desperately need a reset, sometimes you have to dive in. I mean, we've seen players going all the way back. I think one of my favorite plays going all the way back to the World Cup days was somebody jumping out of a baller through a window. I think it was Landjock who ended up doing it, but you talk about desperation plays, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that when people are going through. As Commandant ends up picking up Sizz Lucky, Class gets Degen there, and we get a wide look at the lobby to see who else is there. You got Coop, Neon, Calc, Hunt, Noel, Commandant, Roller, all on the backside. Mega, Zum, Legendian, Jelty, Mikey, Stretch, Jamper, up kind of in the high ground towards the backside. Acorn also hanging out on the low ground. So a lot of names who we've seen before in weeks 2 and week 3. A couple of reboot round heroes also hanging out in there. And Durant, 6 floppers. He's going to start eating some sushi in the Storm.
Yeah, he's going to try and use these to get a better position. Needs to wait to see where that launch pad is. Has time to try and find the good one. You don't want to go through too many, but there it is. He spots it. Wants to late rotate when most people have their eyes on that front zone. They're not looking back at you. Needs to time this perfectly, though, because most players will start looking for their tags and their shots once they get into that front side of zone, which no one has yet. So I think he timed this one very, very well. It is going across a straight water zone, and he makes it just to land so he can now build. Beautiful timing there from Durant. We see Stretch picking up an elimination in the feed. Acorn, Mikey taking down Kellen Class. We got people dropping left, right, and center. Jamper taking out Tilt. He's just going to try and keep his nose in that front side of zone and keep himself as safe as possible. Only has 41 builds left to his name, though, so might need to look for a refresh regularly soon, but at the same time, he does have those floppers to go for another late flopper play to get that easy refresh.
It looks like Mega has just been running through people kind of on that mid-ground tarp during the rotation. You see a ton of people going down. We are going to go back over towards the land, so Durant trying to get ahead of it. Zum is going to end up picking up Calc just before the top 20. Zum turns it into a double as Avery also gets Jelty, so into that kind of next threshold of placement points as we hit top 20. Again, every top 10 will end up being additional points. Zum will end up going down the storm. Durant trying to turn an about face. It gets absolutely railed inside the box. Somebody returning fire, saying absolutely not there. He's now going to be forced kind of to shotgun and play around the outside because he only has the one build as Canada takes down TJ, and we closed in on our top 15.
Yeah, we're talking about old guard versus new. I saw Mega take down Furious there, so that was a very old guard versus the new. And then, oh, good angle here for Durant. He gets one elimination. Can he get the second? Trying to find it, misses the pump shot. Unfortunately, toe-to-toe doesn't miss the second. That's Roller who's gone down. So we have Roller and Furious both having phenomenal performances in the other weeks, but struggling today. Just Mega side top 20. Kalazu goes down, who qualified on the 20th place yesterday, having his first taste of endgame here in the FNCS finals. 5 players alive. Durant on the low ground, struggling, trying to find an angle on someone to make something happen. He's got a little bit of a breather to try and get these minis off. Has a lot of loot next to him, but not a lot of white meds that I can see. We have Neon on the high ground, Kanata looking healthy, Mikey and Durant. We also have Stretch above that. We talked about consistency. Stretch has been one of the most consistent solo players through all the weeks leading up to this, and it's showing here today. They've made it into top 5 with the current FNCS solo scoring format. Any person who goes down, we might see another one shortly, you are going to gain more placement points. Neon trying to use this grapple to get above him, but Stretch doing such a good job to just keep dropping those cones, place as many builds as he can to block it off. And here we go. Neon sees his opportunity, but no, Stretch is ready for it again, and Neon is full sending it on Stretch. He's not going to be happy about this. He eventually takes it. Only has 21 builds left, though. Stretch forced to go down, eventually concedes the high ground, gives it up to Neon, and now he's out in Storm and needs to start putting some pressure because Stretch is not giving this one up easily.
Yeah, but Stretch will end up falling there, unable to catch himself, running out of builds. Just the constant pressure from Neon in the grappler, wearing thin, making it a question of economy, and the double refreshes coming through gives him 33 builds when he had 3 previously, plus the grapple, plus Sky's assault rifle, plus the high ground, and 200 effective HP. There is absolutely no way Neon should not take this away from Mikey. Mikey now trying to play around and just rat on the low ground, looking for an opportunity, but as long as Neon just chills, he should be able to win this match. Like, there's no way you should drop this.
Yeah, he's got 6 eliminations on the board. A phenomenal start for him. So he's going to have very high points. He's got epic tack in hand. Sky's AR, but you can't count it out. Player on the low ground probably has something in the back pocket. Maybe has a few mats left as well, but solid shotgun shot could maybe end this. It's 100-100. It's a tall ask. Can he do it? Neon trying to push his way through. Takes the edits, but goes around and takes the high ground. Maybe he's lost his advantage here. Maybe we spoke too soon. The grappler coming out, but it being blocked off again. The 1v1 situation's breaking out. Neon trying to find his way up, trying to find any angle he can. He goes back around. 15 builds left to his name. He's gone down to only 10 health, and he does. He gets in on Mikey. 10 health is all he needed. He timed it to perfection, but Sundown, he brought that closer than what he thought he was going to. Mikey almost wins it.
That's super tough for Mikey. I mean, I'm not, like, Neon misplayed there. Like, had the entire high ground, had 30-plus builds, had HP advantage. He doesn't know that, but you have to assume when you're down towards the end, if you can build out for the high ground and you have the grappler, you might as well just do it. You don't need to drop down and put yourself in kind of that one pump potential. It got kind of lost in the storm, but then did the good old loop-to-do around the back and just blast him in the face with the mythic AR. So getting a little bailout there, but ultimately comes away with the W in the first game and with 7 eliminations. So lots of points coming through for him after that.
That's got to be a really good feeling there for him to start the game on such a high. Let's take a look at the standings and see if that performance, which I'm pretty sure is probably going to have him leading the pack right now, but the question is, where's someone like Mikey, right, who placed in that second right there toward the end of the game? We'll see. He's actually in third place. Ooh. Durant there, who was right there at the tiebreakers as well. But look, someone else, Colazo. We interviewed him like last week, and he was like, hey, I'm not that great a solo player. Turns out you are. Well, pretty good. Stretch, Bizzle, unknown.
So Colazo came 100th and then 20th, just qualifying through, but he's known as being one of those endgame placement specialists. So in these stacked lobbies, he's doing a lot better. But I think one of the main things there obviously was Neon, what the effect he had on Stretch. Stretch had that high ground. The game was in his hands, and Neon just would not give it up with that grappler. So very unfortunate to see Stretch's game go down like that, but a lot of big names here up on the board, Sundown.
Tons of big names, and particularly in the end game, if you look going through there, you saw both Bizzle and Eclipse were able to push in towards the top 10, two people who have been there consistently over and over again. We saw God Pump, aka Saf, able to come up with a number of plays and shut down Unknown Army. But additionally, on the other side, we've seen a number of kind of these new players able to manufacture eliminations and get into situations where they are able to have these pop-off games, as Neon exemplified, using the mythic items. Not necessarily perfectly, but better than his opponents who were unable to secure them and able to push forward for the victory. And then on this side, now you can start seeing just securing an elimination is enough to put you up kind of in the top percentile. And that's kind of where it should be for the top 100 group. With that being said, expect this to change over the course of the entire tournament, because we got 12 games. This is only one match. Everyone's going to settle in. Like, a ton of these 50-50 fights are going to end up going different directions. So I think we can expect to see a lot of these names shake up, even just from match 1 to match 2.
And the other thing we got to talk about as well is, with a lot of these players, because these are set matches we're talking about, 6 today, the moment that someone is eliminated, that's it. They can no longer rack up points for that game, right? So if you're eliminated, say, like 99th, that means you just kind of have to sit there and wait and kind of run back in your mind. What happened? What did I do wrong? What do I need to change up? Do I just run this back? Do I have to completely change my game plan coming into this next match, right? All of these little interactions will matter, and ultimately will dictate what the leaderboards look like for the rest of the day. And as kind of Sundown mentioned there, Aussie, there was like so many people there, right there at the end. There were top 10 that were eliminated back-to-back. Saf, Colazo right there, Duran, right? All these guys that were like so used to seeing in NA East were just there. They just made it to endgame. So my question to you is, do you think this is going to continue, right? For a lot of these, for someone like Neon with a great starting performance, is that kind of enough juice, right? For all these guys that made it there, is that a good start? Yeah. Do they need to keep pedal to the metal?
I think most of them will be stuck in their game plan. They have their game plan. They've played tournament after tournament after tournament. It's going to be that mental struggle. It's going to be not getting inside your own head. Okay, maybe I'm not playing aggressive enough. Maybe I'm playing too safe. Stick to your game plan. We saw that in EU. You've got to go for consistent placements. If this is what you've been doing in your competitive practice, in your tournaments, if it's been working regularly, don't drop it just because of one poor game. At the same time, and we're also seeing an effect of the drop spots right now with those mythic weapons. Like, that grappler was instrumental in closing out the game. So it's going to be whether do you maybe change your drop spot to go for them. But I think most people in NA East, they're very big on just playing out their games. They got to this point with their playstyle. Most of them are very confident. They know they're one of the best regions in the world, the best players in that region. Any of them could win it. Stick to your game plan and play it out. Hopefully just reset, maybe go back, look at the replays, see how you could have rotated differently, but don't just throw it out and just completely change your game plan. I think that would be my call.
And I've also think that, like, kind of the player pool has maybe thrown a little bit of a curveball in here, because so many people are stuck in their ways in terms of where they're dropping, where they're going to rotate. But we're seeing a number of players who are coming through, Neon being one of them, Roller being another, Durant playing incredibly well in that game, who are coming through the open qualifiers and aren't these super established old pros who, yes, they're doing well in the first match, and I expect them to continue doing consistently, but those guys aren't necessarily going to play by the rules. They aren't going to do what is the, like, super smart rotation where you're disengaging out. If they think they can wait in a bush for a half second and ambush you, as we've seen a number of times with both Durant and Roller, they will do it, and they'll go flying at you, and they have no problem taking that 31 or 62 tag and turning it into an early elimination. And honestly, I think that's going to end up kind of shaking up the game more as we go over the course of today, and particularly tomorrow, because I think people are going to end up being more careful. We're seeing a lot of people getting picked just because of, I don't want to say stupid decisions, but it's almost like careless. It's people not protecting their sides when they're opting to try and ambush somebody, or not completely covering an angle when you really should be, particularly in this top 100, because somebody else is going to take advantage of it, and we already saw it happen twice in that first game.
Well, I want to pose a question to you, Sundown, as well. So when you see those people on the top of the leaderboard, would you rather see someone who's maybe got that consistency like Zay, or would you rather see one of these people who hasn't done as well? And I'm talking from a player perspective. So would you rather have someone at the top who you think maybe doesn't have the consistency, or would you rather see one of those big names? Because they're throwing spanners in the works. If I look at the leaderboard and I see Roller up there and I'm like, wow, in week 2, he dropped a lot of points. Or would you rather see someone who's safer, who's going to be more consistent? Because they're setting your pace. You have to chase them.
I mean, I think it depends on kind of what your playstyle is, and I think it's also really difficult to tell after one game. I think you kind of get more of a shape of where you need to be after 2 or 3, particularly in a 12 game. I'm a big fan of looking at it, kind of breaking it up in thirds. You think of it as the early, the mid, and the late over the course of the whole tournament, and it's like, hey, I need this number of points during this stage. Okay, now I need to adjust what it looks like, because if you try and look at it in kind of anything bigger than that, it's really hard to bite off. But with that being said, I think you'd almost rather see somebody you're not aware of getting those pop-off games, because it's like, okay, like, yeah, that's going to happen, but, like, I'd be extremely worried seeing Zate or Unknown Army putting off, like, a massive 70-point game early on, because I know they're going to do well over the course of a 12-game series. And right away, kind of looking at that initial grouping, I'm going to call out Bizzle and Eclipse and Saf. Right away, 3 veterans, all made it into the top 10, all picked up a number of eliminations, and they have been in almost every single major solo tournament, and they don't get nearly enough credit for that high level of consistency we've talked about. And each one of them has the potential to not only place like consistently high in each game, but to actually take home the tournament.
Man, I love it. The breakdown there, out of this world. And that becomes the biggest question, right? Is like, will they have that moment? Will they get that catalyst that will just kind of rocket them up the settings? Because a lot of, even looking at the snapshots from before, 137 points in OCE and Asia, and then 138 from Janus in EU, right? So being able to just hold on to those points, drop big numbers, and just carry that momentum into day 2 is really going to make a massive world of difference for a lot of these players. Now, of course, we've seen players, people like, Mr. Savage, Benj, they didn't quite perform, but that's okay. As Sundown mentioned, there's 2 days here, so you still have another day to reset. But gentlemen, I'm getting word the next game is ready to go. So let's go ahead and hop back in a game with Sundown and Aussie Antics.
Thank you so much, Zeke. Hopping on in match number 2, NA East. There's the map, and honestly, what do you think of just this general spread right now, Aussie?
I'm just noticing a few key points, unless it's probably hidden under all the henchmen, but I was seeing only one person at the Shark, but it's looking like a pretty normal spread, I'd imagine. I think, again, NA East being one of those regions that does have a lot of these players having versed each other a lot. They have really good practice scene. I think they know where each other drop. I'm not seeing anything really of crazy note on the spread. 3 people at Slurpee, you've got 3 people at Craggy, those major POIs at Contest, and we've got a few people taking those scavenger routes like you've talked about in the past to try and get a bit more loot and maybe avoid those confrontations.
Yeah, now we saw an initial engagement over on the side at the Grotto Scope. It did get cleaned up right away. We've seen 1 player go down so far, but DJ now utilizing kind of that rapid fire SMG, does have a remote explosive as well, immediately topping off to the effective 200 HP, and then probably going to go hunting here.
Yeah, looks like he's going to try and find him. We saw what happened first game, Scope going down. Obviously, Scope building quite a name for himself rather quickly in the scene over the last 6 months or so, performing very, very well in a bunch of team game modes, obviously with Tfue, and performing very well as a solo player, being known as one of those incredibly smart controller players, rotating insanely well. Honestly, like, for me, mind-breakingly well. When I watch people like Colazo, AV, ooh! DJN coming down and finding an insane beam on ICV, and now we got DJN trying to make his way away because he's been beamed back, but that was a very big, very fast elimination. I did not see that coming so quickly.
That was a gift. That was a literal gift. Scoped had pushed ICV out straight over there. The rapid fire SMG, we talked about it, but just quick little burst over the side. And then you saw Nut rotate over, but we're going to hop on board here with Azures versus Walkman. Azures has all the pressure here. Looks like the editing fight going his way, and Walkman no return damage at all. However, it looks like we have 1 or 2 players lurking nearby on this semi-scavenger route. He's a little bit northwest of Salty, so not a ton over here to really fight over, but generally enough loot for one person.
I think a little bit further, though, is when you start to get a little bit further west that it does get really dicey. You've got the heavy snipe and the minigun at that house. It's a really difficult house to drop on because you're surrounded by henchmen, and the really only loot you can get to instantly without having the henchmen obviously start beaming you up is the one chest on the roof. So if you're contested, it is one of the worst 50-50s in the game, but if you can get it to yourself, I think it is actually one of the best places to drop on the map, but it is a little bit dicey. You've also got 3 different henchman chests in this area, kind of like just littered around the bushes. You got one near the broken car outside of
One of the best areas to drop on the map.
I think it is.
One of the best areas to drop on the map.
Guaranteed heavy sniper, guaranteed minigun with henchman chest to get guaranteed shield, but unknown going down to tilt. A little bit west of Slurpee. He's actually found himself pretty far from Slurpee pretty quickly. I have to think he maybe got pushed out of Slurpee.
It looked like he was just trying to hunt whoever he thought was most vulnerable, taking a fight against Tilt there, but Tilt is no stranger to those box fights, no stranger to close range fights early on, and as we say, somebody no stranger to close range fights, Sway, who scored nearly 80, I think it was 80+% of his points in the reboot round on eliminations now, yet to find a point here in the early match, now down to 4 builds, does have the Midas drum gun, does have a ton of extra shields as well, and the drum gun will just barely be able to bail him out of that fight. 12 HP coming through, going to be able to top off. Does not have the white HP going through, but fired. Ended up on the other side of the bullets going Burr. Canada lurking nearby, but I think rightfully going to disengage, seeing that Sway had now established himself up. Sway picking up the first elim, and that's a storyline I'm going to be interested to see, because when he got rolling yesterday, he was very, very, very good. However, he did not convert into placement nearly at all, and I don't think you're going to be able to place as highly in this bracket without just converting on the available number of points that come from placement.
Yeah, we saw yesterday, you and me were watching the games, we saw how easily Sway can even convert eliminations endgame, but he would convert those eliminations around that like first rotating where the placement points are about to really start sticking in, and then he would just go down. So it is a story of whether he can kind of contain that aggression, but I luckily had the drum gun in the back pocket. I think that's really the only weapon in the game right now that could have saved him for that one, going down to 12 HP, but I was going to call it. Sway found himself without the builds, his ultimate win condition. He is one of the best builders in the game, but when you're versing some of these really good players and there's so many eyes on you, going for those big fancy high ground retakes is actually sometimes worse than when you think about people like Booger, who revolutionized the box fight tactic. Just sit in your box and take a fight at close range. Third partying becomes harder. You have a lot more control. It's just not as risky. And ooh, we see Neon picking up such an easy elimination on Jay, doing so well to kind of stretch his lead out here or maintain it with not a fancy play, but very, very good attention to what's happening around him, thinking maybe if I box up here, take one little tiki tag, and he gets the elim. But also worth noting, he boxed up. He didn't leave himself exposed like we've seen so many players that you commented on earlier in game one going down to kind of silly mistakes.
Yep, and in order to get the eliminations, you have to take the shots. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, but now Scopes trying to miss none of the shots here. He has that Brutus minigun making it sing. However, kind of hitting that maximum fire rate, so going to be pushed down there. Does need to be careful of the light ammunition. Has enough to make it through early on up to the 250, so plenty to work through the early builds, but also doesn't want to necessarily gimp himself for this mid and early game, because he's not going to have a ton of opportunities to really kind of refresh back into it. And Scope desperately, after going down so early on last game, really wants to pick up an elim here. It's tough when you go for an ambush like that and then don't immediately convert, because, like, what are you going to do? Be like, surprise, I'm engaged in a fight, and then leave? Like, you're both in the zone. You're kind of committed to this fight. Like, you need this refresher, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, as I've been watching Scope quite a while now. Last time when he was playing, he got quite tilted, posted on Twitter that he's not having the tournament. This isn't his tournament. I don't want to play this anymore. And then ended up winning the whole tournament. So obviously someone who can bounce back from having a rough start. Takes down Mikey, who had a phenomenal start in game one. Not such a good game in game two. And this is what we talk about with the 12-game format. Anything can change. Last time Scope went down to 50-50. You mentioned it before. Now he survives the 50-50. He's taken down Mikey, and that has a huge impact on the tournament.
It has a massive impact. Like, we talk about each one of these eliminations kind of being worth more when you get up into this top 100, but you're directly competing against every single one of these players, not only now for qualification spots, but we're talking about actual prize money, trying to push yourself up farther, and then getting those spots mean there's somebody else who is pressured by Storm Surge, somebody else who is taking a little bit more damage, who has to use more resources, as we now say, Raised by Kings, Big Brain, a.k.a. your fellow Arab, a.k.a. the content creator, now trying to Big Brain his way through, and you actually see him, so hanging out just outside the Shark now, using the Porta Potty to rotate. If he's able to find another campfire on the other side, what he's going to look to do is just kind of wait this time out, making sure he's firing off into the bush to not get jumped there, but he does have enough resources where if Storm Surge becomes a factor, he could survive through it.
Yeah, definitely. And Arab, knowing for being that big brain player, so that's why he prioritized the islands. I know he's been talking about it leading up into these games that he wasn't actually going to drop here anymore. He was trying to change it because a lot of people were here, but I know coming into this from talking to Arab personally, he had a lot of confidence in this drop. He knows this drop, and it goes into his kind of smarter gameplay with doing stuff like this, baiting out the bush. The stair comes out and he just waits. No, the bush gets broken, so he now knows he's here. His surprise has been ruined, but he takes the wall and he goes out. And there's certain drops that are going to work to your different strengths. Arab is a smarter player. This is one of his strengths, and he can outplay people like that. He can bait them into having the advantage on his back foot. He is known as a content creator, but he has kind of transcended past that, doing phenomenally well. He came second in a week of Duo FNCS, now qualifying straight into finals here from week 2. Didn't even need the reboot round, and it's because of plays like that. He plays to his strengths. He knows that he can outsmart his opponents, so he goes a drop that rewards that.
And honestly, particularly in solos at this level, you have to do absolutely everything. If you're not being cheeky in a bush, if you're not hiding in a cone, if you're not making sure like you're leaving a trail for somebody that's obvious and then doubling back and checking it and like manufacturing eliminations for yourself, somebody else will. Like, go watch Mr. Savage. He's done it ever since the World Cup. Somebody else is doing those little things. And if you think, like, oh, I can get away without sitting in this cone for 5 more seconds to check this path, that's fine. And you will be safe on your rotation. But the person who did wait and caught the player in rotation because they were aware, like Azure's here, able to check the side, get the couple early shots, and begin pressuring forward, they're going to get the one who ultimately walks away with the elimination points. Azure's continuing the aggression forward. However, getting traded back a little bit, needs to think if he really wants to double down on this fight, as they are towards the outside of that circle, and zone is about to start moving.
Yeah, he got the 70 wide tag, so he's got to have this play on the back foot. Aegis trying to find his way through if he can, and there it is, and it's Stretch. One of those players that has been so insanely consistent through every week of solos so far. And then we see Aegis throwing a bit of disrespect down on him, but Stretch, he came 3rd in week 2, and he came 2nd in week 1, so one of the players with high expectations to perform well here today, and we saw him go down 5th in game 1, so a very good first game performance, but picking up next to no points here in game 2.
And that's what it's all about, just saying who's able to kind of progress forward and make the best of it. We've talked about it. 12 games is a lot of competitive Fortnite. Those of you who are just joining us, welcome here on this glorious Saturday. This is the FNCS Invitational Grand Finals. We are in the NA East portion. It is also my mom's birthday, so going to give a quick little personal shout out there. Happy birthday, Ma. I'll clip that for you at some point. But hopping on board here with Overtime Polarized up on the high ground, trying to make sure he's well above not only the Storm Surge threshold, as he's sitting at 381, but making sure he's in a position where if he does have to rotate immediately after this, he's not going to be overly threatened. So wants to make sure that little scarecrow above him, the empty build, is actually empty before heading a little far more centrally.
Can't brush past that one. Happy birthday, Mama Sundown. That is adorable. Yeah, see, polarized play. Not really as much of an adorable play here. The heavy snipe straight into the body shot takes down Eclipse. One of those names you were talking about as having such good performances in solos, and unfortunately here today goes down game 2 to Polarize, who's just getting his first points on the board. He's gotten 2 eliminations this game, taking him from 2 points to 10 so far.
Some really good quick little rotations. Unfortunately, that was Eclipse going down there. We talk about the power, the heavy snipe, the one shot to the head being an elimination, and then the body with the immediate AR follow-up. A little less painful now after that ghost tampering, but it still hurts. Hopping on board here with TSM Commandant, a.k.a. Commandment from Team Solo Mid. Honestly, one of the favorites coming out of NA East. He's had some fantastic performances from week 1 into week 2. Been one of the most consistent players in solos just all around. But again, kind of one of the players who, once getting to the big solo event final, can sometimes struggle to really put up that final performance and pull it all together for the W. However, sitting okay right now. 40 above in terms of the Storm Surge with 20 players or with
Nice.
excuse me, with 2 players who need to go down. Those 2 20-plus tags will put him well above. And the thing that's really hurting here is his lack of extra shields. Ooh, and a great shot onto Haft. And he's immediately going to sprint over to that and see what can I get from it with only his gray tack, the common AR, and then the heavy snipe. So he was definitely hurting, needed the refresh, and leading on the heavy sniper to make it happen.
That was a beautiful shot straight down the line. That was really, really well played. I was going to say Commandment someone I've watched a fair bit as he regularly plays in our cash cups with EMAD, and I find that quite respectable, playing on such a high ping deficit and then having to rely more on that smart play than having to rely just on pure mechanics. So someone who does play a lot of competitive Fortnite, and it shows here today, putting himself in such a good position to pick up that elimination. We see Zate, someone who plays a lot of competitive Fortnite, struggling a little bit today again, only been a game and a half, 1 point on the board. We saw him go down to Unknown Army last time, and maybe changed his rotation path. His Unknown Army went down early, but maybe Zate just avoiding that completely as Arab picks up another elimination in the feed, taking down Starving Aiden. So that's 2 eliminations for him, and Zum caught sleeping, gets the very nice open tag, and then Zum places the walls but doesn't place them close enough, and Zate just gets a freebie.
Zum, hello? Are you there?
Hello?
You're in the FNCS Grand Finals. You need to put a roof above your head, man. Zate taking advantage of that, catching him off guard. I mean, we kind of talk about it, how you need to manufacture those opportunities. That one seemed a little free. I think Zum actually might have been doing a little bit of inventory management there and then kind of got caught out. It looked like he had just looted something. So, if anything, that's just super, super, super unfortunate timing. But it looks like Zate is opting for a little bit more of a safer rotation, completely avoiding the warpath that Unknown Army was on last game. However, we saw him get ended right away by Tilt this game, so it's not going to be a factor here as Bully is in your box.
Yeah, he's trying to get in your box. So far, there's only one wall holding him out from being in your box. He's now in your box, but you've gotten out of it, so Bully trying to find his way through this one. It won't take him long to get in the box, and there it is. Takes him a couple of seconds. Really nice play. Harpoons the floor to instantly break it. Walks up to it by crouching under it, but then stands up, which means that when the other player tried to place the floor, he's phased through and he gets a free tack shot, and that's all he needed. Really, really well played by Bully to get in your box there.
Showing some good level aggression right there, executing on the box fight and making sure he was able to close the fight out before taking too much damage. As we now get a pan over, you see Sway, Weigel, Twexy, Ghoul, Furious, Polarized, Perplexy, Bully over on the side, Jelty, Doxy, Fishy, Coop, Shaz, Vanish Banked, Vexy, Wiggs, Johi, tons and tons of NAE's players we've seen before. 66 players still remaining as we head into the 4th Storm Circle. We have 1 minute and 15 before that rotation will start. I would expect to see a large number of players go down on this rotation. Storm Surge will start to get threatened kind of towards the backside. We do see Sway with that drum gun. No additional aggression since the early game, which was out of character from what we saw in the other rounds. And what we really want to see from this player is we don't want to see kind of what happened with King at the World Cup, where you look really, really, really good in the early and the mid game, and you're able to kind of get these flashy plays and grind it out. Like, yes, that's good, but that's not a complete Fortnite player. You need to be able to get into the placement points. You need to be able to get into the end game and kind of be able to take advantage of your slaying capability in those opportunities. That's what really enables you to be kind of really great and truly competitive. But Sway now just trying to get aggressive and get into one of these old boxes. Now turning around, using the drum gun, putting as much pressure on this opponent as I can. His opponent now recognizing the drum gun's there, and Weigel just barely going down. 24 HP, but the siphon coming through. Sway needs to find a little bit of space in order to now heal up, because you can't take those trades with the drum gun when you're not at the kind of the effective max HP. You'll end up losing in more circumstances than you would want, because you want to be essentially winning in every circumstance. Take every advantage you have. As Furious now, again, trying to fly against it. And this is 3 hyper-aggressive players all next to each other.
Yeah.
Bully, Furious, and
Very
Sway
close.
right on top of each other.
I was going to say, if I'm in set lobbies and I know that there is Sway in this game and I see a Dark Bomber running ahead of me, that is not the person I'm rotating behind trying to use his builds. That is definitely someone that I want to avoid. Like you said, if you know unknowns in your lobby, you avoid that POI. So similar thing happening here, but Retail Row, an interesting zone to see it finish. This is going to play in the hands of people like Scopes, who obviously dropping Grotto, like Colazo, who was top 5 last game. He's been dropping Retail Row since the start of Fortnite. It's been his competitive drop in every game mode and every tournament since competitive Fortnite started. So he's obviously still going to be over here somewhere, having having a really good early game to be able to rotate into this one a little bit closer. But when you talked about Storm Surge, sometimes getting zone is not always the best thing because everyone's still making their way towards you. It's a lot harder to find those Storm Surge tags that are going to be so crucial. But now we see plenty of people banked up on this edge as Avery goes down. It's going to be an interesting endgame. If this goes further east, it's going to cause a lot of problems.
Those problems mainly being the change in verticality in that mountain that's hanging out right there, and everyone is posted up on it as that fourth zone does now finally resolve. We see Bizzle still in the match. Shaz got taken out last time, hanging on to Meowscow's PRPR rifle. The 44 and 88 tags from the headshot that come through when that thing is at its closest distance really hurt and are able to kind of rocket you up, particularly in the Storm Surge threshold. You see Shaz not having to deal with that. However, only 2 players will be going down from it as Shaz begins tunneling out and trying to gain control over... Oh, he has a nice little supply cache there.
Yeah, nice. He needed those minis too. You talked about not wanting to have to rely on white meds towards the end of the game. Floppers, bandage cannon included. You want to have some shields as well, because now for tags like this, the white med's not enough to heal you up, but you don't want to be running around 130. I'm assuming he's seen it, right? Maybe just waiting for Zone to pull a little bit more to make sure he doesn't take any tags to get it. I think maybe run out there, grab it, and just use the bandage cannon to secure it. But Bizzle getting some heavy pressure on him as we see SF Roller on the back foot as well. 100 health, no shields. He might be looking for an impact, and he is right now. This would probably be your definition of shambles. Has 56 builds, has a loadout to get an elimination, but not the health. But we've seen how good SF Roller can play when he's aggressively pushing forward and finding those eliminations. So if he can try and find his way into the box or maybe find someone rotating past, he could get that refresh, and that's what's going to make or break those really good players to those really great players, being able to find that pick that you now need without having to go too aggressive for it and risk too much. But Roller not in the greatest position, but it's still not over for him here.
Yeah, talk as much trash on the dude as you want. Every single time he's pushing into a box, I at least see him reverse editing the cone so he can't get immediately flown on. So I'll give him props to that. That's more than 95% of competitive players. As Stowe, with a absolutely brilliant cone on top of Rogue Shark, edits him down and drops him into the storm, picks up the floppers for it as well, but now he kind of needs to haul a little bit as he's on the edge of the storm. Does have the flopper to kind of save himself and give him a little bit more wiggle room to work with as the zone does settle. And honestly, manufacturing a little bit there, but with the 27 builds, he's going to need to find another pick or just be really, really, really patient, because Ozzy, your worst fear has come true.
Yeah, it's going straight across that mountain now. This is going to be a very hard zone for players on low mats like that. We see Kalazu looking around again, someone who dropped a near here, so maybe has a decent amount of mats. Same with Scoped up there. Illust in a really good spot, has Sizzlucky directly above him. So these players are looking really good. They have that advantage. They're already at the vertical limit for that mountain, so they can just tarp straight across. These players I'm seeing down the bottom, like Zucky, like Knight, like Elige, Mega, they're going to need to make their rotate. Durant trying to put some pressure in the sky, and that he does. Clicks also in this game, picking up an elimination on Bank, and Durant gets straight in his box, so he gets 2 eliminations. Does he make it 3, or does he go down? No, he makes it 3. He picks up 3 eliminations. That one was on Neon, who was our leader after game 1. So Neon going too aggressive here and going down. And Durant, who was in 2nd place, now picks up 3 eliminations, 1 of them on first. So that is a huge turn for this tournament.
That was massive. Absolutely. Like, we've seen him get in positions and being able to capitalize on those launchpad rotations plenty of times before. But Neon just going straight gung-ho into the box. Durant being able to trade it out. Calc picking up an Elim there as we see Elige also going down, closing on the top 30 as we go down the backside of the mountain. Now the real question is, do we go back up the mountain? Because if so, all the people up here on the high ground are going to have the advantage as we hop on board here with the calculator himself trying to make plays, working from the top down as we do go back up the side of the mountain. So sorry to everyone on the low ground who just burned all of your utility. You drove the short straw. You can now burn everything to try and get back up as Calc eats 2 huge bullets from Polarize. He's going to go down there. Sway is going to pick up Plague, so made it into the end game. And as I say that, Vexy picks him down. Polarize now rotating around the front side of the zone. You see Krem's a little bit behind him. Scoped sitting underneath that. Illust just above, actually holding ultimate high ground right now, Ozzy.
He had high ground before the zone even went up the mountain, so just beautiful positioning so far from Illust. He's played this one so well, and sometimes you just need the inventory and you need the loadout to even get into that position, but Illust clearly had that. He has the high ground. Kanata making a short pad onto frontside. We're seeing some big names in here. I see RBK, Big Brain still in there. We see Coop, who obviously previous teammates, Durant, Nuts, Stowe, Jack. We got some big names, but Illust trying to put down some pressure from the high ground, but even without pressure and eliminations, he's just getting free placements. He's avoiding all of this that's beneath him right now. No one is looking at him. We haven't seen that grappler come come out into effect yet. Anyone trying to take it from him. Kanata takes down Crims. 28 points for Illust. I have to think, unless he has a massive misplay, he's going to jump up quite high. And Kanata picks up another elimination with Scopes taking down Mega as we push towards this top 10. And we have so many big names. Arab going down, unfortunately. Kanata going down to Stowe. This is now top 10. Every single player that goes down, everyone else is going to receive guaranteed placement points. This is where you really want to hold on for as long as you can, as Illust right now in a great position to apply pressure from above, but there's so many old builds that he can't find his way in, but he's just getting more and more placement points for free. He has 20 builds, 4 floppers, 6 minis. We called it last game. We almost jinxed it for Neon, but you'd have to think Illust is going to be able to close this one out as he takes down Scoped, a big shark in this lobby, and we haven't seen the grappler come into effect. I want to see if someone has that. Maybe Jelty, from what I just saw from that movement. Jelty might have that grappler to be able to take Illust high ground, but without that, this is going to be a very hard game to take from Illust.
Which he should just be able to work top down. I mean, this rotation going back and forth over the mountain is so absurdly frustrating if you're not able to control the same space as Jelty is able to pick up Coop, and particularly because it's gone kind of not necessarily on the same axis. It's just given the player who had the most materials, which effectively has been Illust, working the top down the advantage here, but now he's going to be forced to look back out in the storm. Does have the floppers to pick it up, but this zone is an absolute nightmare.
This is an absolute nightmare to find his way down here. Illust, 4 players alive. Someone dropping down in front of him. 2 Harpoon comes out trying to break them down. Illust only has 1 build left. That's it. He drops down. Goes all the way to the very bottom. Illust going down to 4 damage. The high ground ended up being his demise. He got a lot of points from it, but now Stowe has the high ground. Polarized. Assault having their fight down there. Assault goes down to Polarized. It's a 1v1 situation. Stowe has the rockets in hand. Can he make the play? He's trying to thread them down. He has 12 rockets in the legendary RPG. 25 builds, 3 eliminations. Can he make it 4 to close this one out? He gets knocked down. He goes down shotgun to shotgun in midair. He takes the shot on Polarized and closes this one out before he hits the ground. 4 eliminations, and high ground being the ultimate win condition, but Illust was just a little bit too high.
2 HP being the difference, and just look at that build going back and forth. That is so absurdly frustrating to deal with when you're in that end game. If you're up on the high ground, just desperately trying to recycle over whatever you can, use whatever your bats, but the back and forth, I mean, it's an adage old at time when it comes to competitive Fortnite, but Old Man Mountain will claim his tone, but particularly when it comes to the moving zones, he's able to claim it there. So many players going down, whether it'll fall damage, running out of materials, or just getting railed on from Illust and the other players from above. I mean, that was a heck of a finish there.
That's right, guys. Now we got to ask ourselves, where is Stowe on the leaderboard? Where did that end up bumping him all the way up to? And it looks like Neon from first is now in second with Durant contesting there. Stowe is put all the way up into 3rd place after just his 2nd game.
You can see how quickly it changes up here. So Neon was at 61 points going into that game, only picks up 7, but he's still in 2nd place. We have Polarized jumping up quite high. Illust, who had that high ground. Kanata jumping up into there as well. Calazo dropping down just a little bit as he was inside top 5. We have Coop flying his way up through the leaderboards as well. Scoped, who picked up 0 points game 1, is now 26 points in 17th place. So it just shows how quickly you can change up.